On August 12th, we have the total solar eclipse in the sign of Leo at 20 degrees. The sun's domicile, the ruler of this moon. Venus is also in her domicile in the sign of Libra, but Mars in its fall in the sign of Cancer, Saturn in its fall in the sign of Aries. Mars is out of bounds in a space where he's a pioneer, rebellious, pushing the boundaries, moving more independently. The mini grand trine is also still in effect. Mercury is approaching a conjunction to Jupiter. Mercury will blend to whoever it's touching. And it's also separating from its opposition to Pluto, separating from a trine to Neptune and Aries, and approaching a sextile to Uranus. It's also perfecting a sextile to Venus, moving away from potential deception, possible deception, cloudiness, confusion. Uranus maybe provides shocking information, awakens, or it provides the words to maybe separate from a particular belief. Venus is also involved in this mini grand trine as well. She's separating from an opposition to Neptune, separating from a trine to Pluto, and she's in a trine to Uranus. It could be relationships that deceive, maybe holding power within certain relationships, the right use of power within relationships, tense conversations, maybe making it easier to separate. Venus is approaching a sextile to Jupiter. Jupiter is superior in that sextile. So, I mean, Jupiter is looking for maybe to embrace more self-love. In the sign of Leo, a focus on the self. Jupiter maybe demands more play, more romance. And with Hygeia here, preventative medicine, maybe creativity as a means of preventing sickness. Venus is also conjunct Icarus, pushing the boundaries. Icarus, he flew too close to the sun. So we're pushing our boundaries, probably relationships that push our boundaries. The sun, moon, Mercury, and Jupiter are all in Leo's domain. So this is where we're self-expressive, passionate, and creative. Maybe more playful, romantic, childlike, pleasure-seeking, looking for fun and entertainment. Can also have an entrepreneurial mind, risk-taking with Jupiter here too. Sign of leadership and loyalty. Also self-centered with the sun. The nodal axis has shifted now in Leo Aquarius. So with the South Node in Leo, where we're releasing our dysfunctional Leo parts. No planet is exalted here. This is the sun's house. This is the only planet that's allowed to take charge here and relax to receive support. It's exclusive. It's focused on fame and visibility, legacy, maybe attaching our sense of purpose to something grand, something dramatic, a solar purpose. We could be releasing sins of lust, jealousy, arrogance, selfishness. In the sign of Leo, the daylight, it's steadily decreasing. It's a death of the light as it goes through late July and August. The North Node now in Aquarius, it puts our focus on future potential, a collective vision, comparing the status quo to our ideal. Could be finding the limits of the material realm, survival instincts, especially with Pluto here. It could be spirituality being discussed, religion, mysticism, looking for meaning. Maybe how to skillfully break the limits as well, rediscovering something from the past, categorizing systems. It could be a space where we're isolating and alienating ourselves from society. but we're focused on evolving, on collective causes, institutions, networks, social groups. I'd like to take a look at two moons, one in the past, one in the future, relating to this lunation. The first one in February 12th of 2025. In this chart here, the sun is in detriment. In the sign of Aquarius, there's a full moon here at 24 degrees Leo. Venus is also in detriment in the sign of Aries here. Pluto is in Aquarius in this chart, but the Saturn-Neptune, they were just meeting. They're 10 degrees apart, but in the sign of Pisces. And also the North Node is sandwiched in between them here too. Jupiter is conjunct Aldebaran, a royal fixed star. It could be responsible for, wealth and success, fame, a rise, but also if the integrity is not upheld with this royal star, then there could be disaster, scandal, collapse, a fall from power. And in alignment with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction there in Pisces, it's like the dirty scandals and secrets of a powerful group being exposed. If you remember back then, we did have something like that. The exposure of the dirty secrets, exposing systematic deception. So it's interesting, this full moon here, we did receive clarity, but there was an inability to act on that information with Mars retrograde here at 17 degrees in the sign of Cancer. In its fall, no ability to act on the information. It's also interesting. It's conjunct Pluto's ascending node. The planets also have a nodal axis. Because Pluto is a slow mover, we all have this in our charts. It remains around 19 to 21 degrees of Cancer. So in this place as a collective, we're all integrating personal power and truth, psychological purging, systemic rebirth. Could be moving past old power dynamics, maybe finding authentic personal empowerment. Same patch of Cancer here. I mean, Mars went retrograde here February of 2025. And then in November of 2025, Jupiter went retrograde in the same space to reveal what's hidden, to review our belief systems, family baggage, also in the sign of Cancer. And then Mercury went retrograde over the same degrees in July of this year, going over the details, the fine print. Maybe even finding the words to explain those deeply ingrained emotional patterns, like a societal restructuring. In this space of Cancer, it's about, with this Pluto ascending node, it's about a societal restructuring, about power, security, survival, a tribal energy, nationalism, vulnerability, emotional manipulation, attachments, but fear-based attachments. This is a space also where we were exposing corruption. There were collapses of old power structures, purging toxic foundations. We had the border crisis, housing crisis. We're recycling old grievances, the family care systems, education, food chains, to unlearn the old propaganda and to find a new language for our pain and the failures of the system. There are certain systems where you're not allowed to say anything. And so maybe it really is finding the language for the first time to speak about something that has rarely been discussed. Now, time to build a new system, one that's rooted in transparent, authentic leadership, an upgrade to this system. And for our solar eclipse here that we have August 12th of 2026, Mars is now back in Cancer. It could be a severing to the useless, to the old. Mars has been in forward motion all year. So it's removing stagnant emotional habits in Cancer. Maybe family childhood conditioning, where you compromise yourself to make others comfortable and happy. Where you can become a fierce protector of your emotional sovereignty, protecting your quality of life, your loved ones, protecting the vulnerable, maybe finding a true inner security, emotional intelligence as well. It's interesting, we also had a new moon in the same space, this Pluto ascending node at 21 degrees of Cancer on July 14th, too. Collective birth of something new. And in the future here now, what we're harvesting from this solar eclipse here in August, this harvest, we'll begin to see the results at the full moon, 21 degrees of Leo on February 10th of 2028. In this chart, we have a full moon, 21 degrees of Leo, the culmination, manifestation, exposure, some clarity on the seed that we've bloomed in 2026. The sun will be in detriment in Aquarius. Venus also in detriment in Aries, but it's also conjunct Neptune. So it's brought in here on the mini grand trine again. And so is Mercury. Mercury is conjunct Pluto. Mercury conjunct Pluto, Venus conjunct Neptune. So now they're also tied into this mini grand trine with the outer planets once more. Saturn's still in its fall in Aries. Also, Jupiter is retrograde now in the sign of Virgo. And Mercury is also retrograde here. Mercury is also retrograde conjunct Pluto. Mars at 29 degrees of Aquarius too, conjunct Lilith. The sun in a sextile to Saturn, but they're both in bad shape. And their least favorite signs. The moon is also approaching a trine to Saturn. Could be about uniting under a cause or a cause. Or it could be weaponizing our relationships, our beauty, to deceive. Mercury's retrograde conjunct Pluto, to deceive. Could be addictive tendencies too. Getting lost in them. Mars Lilith to glamour. Yeah, could get lost in libidinal thoughts, deceived by them, going overboard. Addictive tendencies here could show itself. Chiron will be square the nodal axis also in Leo Aquarius. Highlighting resources too, maybe, yeah, addictive tendencies, they're costly. So maybe highlighting how much it has costed you, maybe even looking at your whole life, how much a particular habit has costed monetary, the financial cost of bad habits, perhaps. It's interesting because this full moon here in 2028, it's harvesting not only that solar eclipse that we're having in 2026, but it's harvesting this entire nodal axis transit here in Leo Aquarius. For our solar eclipse, this is the beginning of this Leo Aquarius transit of the nodal axis. And in 2028, this is about the end of it. So we'll be seeing the results of what having the North Node in Aquarius, that more collective, more focused on social, humanitarian causes as well. Maybe more isolation, how that impacts us later. It's interesting if loneliness can lead to maybe more addictive habits, maybe more time for addictive habits, maybe less accountability because maybe less relationships that make us accountable. That's interesting. Whatever it may be, it will be the harvesting of this current seed here, like the boundaries that we enforce here in 2026, the path that we choose to take. We'll be able to see it in 2028. Why we had to make the certain cuts that we made this time around. Also, the asteroids that conjunct this current moon in this 2026 solar eclipse chart here is Bathsheba, a biblical figure found in the book of Samuel. This was the wife of Uriah, a soldier in King David's army. While Uriah was away at war, King David, he spotted Bathsheba and he lusted after her while she was bathing. And he used his power to sleep with her. She became pregnant. This would be a huge scandal because Uriah was away. So King David tried to bring him back to see if, they could cover it up. Maybe he comes back and he sleeps with his wife and people think it's his baby. This failed though because Uriah, he wanted to remain on the field to help his partners. So the king, he sends a letter to the commander to abandon Uriah, and then he was killed. A prophet had said that as a divine consequence, the child would die. The moon also conjuncts Procne, and in this story, Procne marries a king, and this king assaulted Procne's sister. He also cut out her tongue, so she couldn't speak. He imprisoned her, and he told Procne that her sister had passed. But Philomena, she found a way to weave a tapestry explaining through symbolism, through this image, what happened to her. She gets it to Procne. Procne understands her message and finds a way to enact revenge by sacrificing this new family that she created with this king for her natal family, for her sister. God's turned everyone in this story into birds. And it's interesting. It's like, in a way, they lose their humanity with the way that they behaved here. It's interesting because with Bathsheba, she also has a similar theme of the abuses of power for libidinal pleasures. Abuse of power for libidinal pleasures. Both kings also try to cover up their crimes, so covering up bad behavior. There's also a death of a child in both stories, the death of a creation, perhaps. There's also passing messages, subliminal messages. That's interesting too, especially with Mercury in this mini grand trine and Venus in this mini grand trine, passing of subliminal messages amongst each other. Yeah, it could be. And using art too in a way to do so. It's interesting because in both stories, we experience loss here and deception, but in one story we have a softer, silent response from Bathsheba, um, where a prophet says that as a divine consequence, that child would die. This happened to her, whereas Procne, she chose. So that's interesting. Maybe we seems like there are a lot of similarities, but it seems like the difference would be the choice, how we choose to act on our anger. because Mars is currently in Cancer. It's not retrograde, it's direct. We can finally act on the feelings that we experienced in the past, on the information that was revealed in the past. We can finally act on this. So it's your choice, I guess, whether to have a quiet, silent response or have a response like Procne. Mars in its fall must behave a little differently. It must be more indirect. It can be more passive aggressive, holding on to anger until it explodes. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like the video. Bye.